this week we're talking to Adam Carter from Final Descent Outdoors, and he is really been their editor from season 4 to now. And last fall, he decided that he was going to um, take up big game hunting. He had killed a couple turkeys and ducks and fished his whole life, and he decided last fall he was going to take up big game hunting. And Brad coerced him into putting in for an elk tag, and he got a once-in-a-lifetime elk tag to hunt elk in the Wichita Mountains of Oklahoma.
I think specifically I took Brad's tag. I think that's what I've been saying the whole time, is that, he said to put in, and maybe in a few years, 10, 15 years, I'll get drawn, but he was so kind to let me take his,
Well,
so.
Either way, you got a tag, did not have a lot of experience, and because of the rules of this hunt, you were literally dumped out in the Wichita Mountains by yourself.
Yeah.
308, CVA, and a camera.
Yeah.
And you managed to get it all put together and kill yourself a beautiful bull elk.
Yeah. It's pretty much how it happened.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible deal. Yeah, no, it was a drop you in the woods, and from a place with zero experience, it was a eye-opening time to be dropped out there.
I can only imagine. I think I personally would have been a little overwhelmed with having a once-in-a-lifetime tag and being dropped off in a place.
That's a good word for it.
Well, I'm speaking from a guy that's been out west and actually hunted elk before and harvested an elk before. But being somewhere where I had never hunted before and having the camera and spot and stalk and doing it by yourself, I would have been overwhelmed. I can't imagine what you kind of felt.
I kind of resolved to just, early on in the process, I had to, for my own sanity, I had to resolve to just roll with the punches. And it kind of just turned into that. And it turned into a lot of, asking a lot of people a lot of things. That was kind of a big part of it, was just doing the research and the legwork beforehand, just trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do, because that was the biggest thing. And, but yeah, it was overwhelming is a great word for what I felt.
So we'll walk kind of through the process, and we'll start back to 2018 or whenever it was that you said to Brad, I think 2019 is the year I want to start hunting. What was it that triggered you that 19 was the year? I'm going to put the fishing pole down this fall, and I'm going to get a CVA, and I'm going to go try to make this thing work.
Yeah. Well, I didn't ever put the fishing pole down. I don't know if that'll ever happen. I can't do that. But I've grown up with that, and I think I talk about it in that episode a little bit, that land out in Wellston, and that's actually where we're building right now too. So that land I've grown up with, and it's always been a dream to build a house, to live out there. But it's also something that I know a lot of hunting has happened out there, and Brad just kind of, again, all of this kind of comes from Brad. A lot of him saying, you know what, like, we've got all of this 1,100 acres out here. Like, let's try to do something with it. It's a great place that we know there's deer out here. We know there's definitely hogs out here. We've got stuff that we can go do. And so it just kind of turned into something like, you know what, you're right. And I'd gone hunting 2 years prior to that. Just went out and with a muzzleloader in muzzleloader season, and just sat there and poured a pile of corn out to see what happened. And I had a little 1-year-old buck come in, but nothing crazy. And so it really was a lot of, thinking to yourself, like, I'm a producer of a hunting TV show, and I don't hunt, and it's not necessarily because of not wanting to, it's just time wise. And so I was like, this year, you know what, I'm going to put in the time, we're going to put in the effort. And Brad helped a lot too, of getting out, hanging stands, putting feeders out, trail cameras, doing the research, working within our apps to try to figure out stuff. And that was the real thing, was just going, you know what? There's no reason not to get out here and do this. And it's a lot of fun. I love sitting out in the outdoors. I love being in the woods. It was a no-brainer at that point, and Brad really kind of helped say, you know what, let's do it this year. I'll help you.
Well, that's cool. And as someone with 2 children under the age of 4 right now, you're probably lucky that you did it last year, since you are expecting.
Well, no, I've got a 7 and a 3.
Oh, so you know what that's like. You had to carve out time.
Yes. No, it's exactly right. It is one of those things of going, and also, like, my son started kind of expressing a lot of interest in it. I mean, he's already done a lot of fishing stuff. Like that's how we started our YouTube channel. It's just him and I going out and fishing. And so we started going out and fishing and stuff. And then I got to take him this year out during youth season, and he just wanted to go sit, not necessarily even go shoot anything, because he's still a little timid behind the gun. But he went out, and we sat for, all afternoon into the evening, and walked back in the dark, and it was a blast. And he had a lot of fun. But that's also one of the big reasons is I want my son to also grow up, both my kids to be able to grow up with a legacy of hunting as well. That's something that I didn't really do a lot with my dad. I mean, I got my love for fishing from my dad and my grandpa, but I never really hunted with them at all. But I know that's something I want them to have in their arsenal, and something that they have as well, just to enjoy.
Cool. Brad's an intense guy, and anytime you get into anything with Brad, I found that sometimes your expectations going in are not always accurate to what is actually going to happen. So my next question is, what was the one thing that was the most different about hunting that you did not foresee, or was different from your expectations going in?
Oh gosh. Like, I guess it's the same thing with what something that Brad talks about all the time with making a TV show. Like, when he first got into making a TV show, a hunting TV show, he thought it was going to be 90% hunting and 10% business. And after it's all said and done, it's really about 90% business and 10% hunting. I'd say that's the same exact thing when it comes to the prep work with hunting. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think I talked about that in the episode. There's a lot that goes into it that I just, no idea that you had to, like, going out and filling the feeders every few weeks. It's just like, oh gosh, it's empty already. I gotta go put more corn in it already. It's like sitting there trying to figure out how much you can slow it down and all that stuff, hanging stands, and then checking cameras, going out. And I can't tell you how many times I went out to a trail camera, checked the card, put the card back in, and set the stupid thing to, like, off. And I didn't turn the camera back on. And then I'd go back like 4 or 5 days later, and there's no pictures on it. And I'm like, what's wrong? And I'd call Brad, and he'd say, like, well, what's the switch on? And I'd be like, he'd be like, yeah, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
It's like,
you left it off.
it's just, there's so much of that prep work that it's not just, and there's a few guys, we got a guy on our staff, Paul Powers, like he could go out and Brad always says he could go out and hang a tree stand in the middle of the Walmart parking lot and kill a massive buck. And he's just that guy. But there's so much more work that goes into it that I never ever imagined that was going to be into it.
Especially when you have your own ground, there's
yes.
plots, and there's feeders, and there's deer stands, and
and we are really overrun with cedar trees. Like that was like a 10-second part of the episode that needed to probably be a full episode. That we are inundated with them out there on the farmland.
I mean, yeah, it looked like you're right. That was probably a 10-second clip on the thing, but you spent days out there doing that. That's not something.
I spent at least a week out there, and that was only on a 40-acre section that we're going to be building on. Like, we had so many cedar trees that it was just, it's crazy. And that's just a chunk. So there's some areas out there that I don't even want to begin like the only tool out there I'd want to use is a bulldozer. So it's pretty crazy.
So in the episode, which is aired on Pursuit Channel, will now be on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You shot a pig, and I know that
Yeah.
sometimes in TV land, the episodes do not go in chronological order. So
Yeah.
was the pig before the elk hunt or after the elk hunt?
The pig was before the elk hunt. Yeah, it
Okay,
was.
good. So you at least got a warm up
Yes.
with the pig, and got that experience. And then in the episode, you're sitting at the desk there. I'm assuming it's the same desk or a similar desk that you're sitting at.
Same desk, different location, but yeah.
It's been moved.
So I showed him earlier. We're in the midst of editing right now. So same desk, different location.
So, and that's a monitor now. That's the
Yes.
real deal.
It's the real deal.
So you're sitting at this desk in a different location that is undisclosed, and you get a call from the Game and Fish to say that you have been drawn for this elk tag. And in the episode, you didn't look like you'd seen a ghost, but you looked like you were thinking, what do I do now? Can you walk us through that? Like, what did you think when you hung up that phone before you even called Brad? Were you like, I am in over my head?
Well, it's a roller coaster of emotions, really. Because I mean, there's a reason the episode's called Amateur Hour. I had no idea. So I got a call when I got the call. Like I didn't think it was a big deal, to be honest. Like I was just like, oh yeah, cool,
I got a tag.
Cool, all right. It wasn't until, my first question was like, because we're obviously in that time of the season, we're real busy with the show stuff going on, with filming, with also last minute edits, things like that. So that was my first one. Like, well, when is it? I saw it was in December, and I was like, okay, we are good then. And so the first thing I did was call Brad, and that is when the reality of it really set in, because that was when this.
So hold on a second. So if it had been in the end of October or November, is there a chance you would have told him you weren't going to go while you were on the phone with that because you had to work?
Oh, no.
Okay.
I think I probably would have just said, well, I need to look at stuff. Like I probably would have figured out a way, because ultimately what the next step, no matter when that thing was, would have been I was going to call Brad. And he was going to, he would have laid down. If I would have said, I don't know if I got time to do this, he would have drove to where I was and slapped me. So it would have, it would have happened regardless. But that's when I got that call, and they had to resend me the email, because that's the thing is they send out those emails in the summer, and either one of two things happened. Either I didn't get it, which is a possibility, or two, I deleted it because I thought it was just like, a newsletter or something. Just man, I don't want to look at it. I'm done. And so that's the two things that could have happened there. Most likely the second one. And so when they called, it was October when I got the call. Like I only had a month or so to get really ready for this deal. So when they called and said, here's what's going on, like I thought it was kind of run of the mill. Like I didn't know how many tags they give out every year. I didn't know they only give like 10 or 15 of these things out. Like I had no idea, just completely clueless. And it comes from a place of Brad, earlier in the year going, hey, why don't you go do this? Get on the wildlife department. It's $5. It's a once in a lifetime thing. It'd be fun. You see, maybe in 15 years you'll get this deal. And so I didn't think anything of it. It wasn't until Brad answered the phone that it really all set in.
So what was the next step? So in the episode, you get your CVA out, and Brad's informed you that you need to be able to shoot 400 yards.
Yes.
Which I've been shooting for a long time. 400 yards would be a stretch for me.
Yeah, you're talking about in the it's real fortunate that, like, I mean, we called CVA I think that next day I ordered a 308, and they had it in 2 weeks. So like it was there, like it was quick, real quick turnaround. And we got everything ready. And I mean, the first thing, like that video of me in the episode holding the phone, talking to it in my office, all of that happened after I talked to Brad. So like that was when the gravity of everything hit. So at that point, I'm like panicked. At that point, I'm like, I got to get all this stuff. And so like we got the rifle in and we go out, and he says, look, you need to be comfortable hitting something at 400 yards. And I just was like, I mean, I've shot far before, but maybe 200 yards is kind of like the limit of what I had shot. And most of the stuff that I was doing was like 22s and, 17, 18, like really small stuff, just like shooting turtles and ponds. Like we're not talking crazy stuff. And even that pig that we shot later in the year, that was maybe 60, 70 yards. Like it wasn't far at all. And so when we went out there, I'm fortunate with that area right off the back of that house, that bunkhouse that's out there. We can get up to about 250 yards. There's nowhere out there that I could practice shooting at 400. And so it was kind of just like a practicing thing. So we got out there and I shot 100, shot 250. And then at that point, I began looking around all of our land, trying to figure out where can I practice for a 400-yard shot. And Brad was like, look, he at this point, he can tell, that I'm worked up about it. Like I'm freaking out. And he's like, look, you got to hit something that's the size of a 55-gallon drum at 400 yards. If you can, at 200 yards, if you can get within this pattern, at 400, you're going to be just fine. And so he talked me off the ledge a little bit, and I got to where I could shoot, within about 2 or 3 inches at 250 yards. And I was like, okay, whatever happens, happens at this point.
Fast forward to the actual hunt. You had to go out there and do an orientation, which most of those type of hunts do. And then they put you in the back of the truck and you ride around and you get to pick where you get dropped off in your section. Do they give you any indication where they've been seeing elk or
No.
You get any help from them?
Well, this is part of the behind the scenes stuff. So we get out and we get there and I go and I'm first thing I'm doing is I've called the wildlife people, I've called the feds, I've called everybody at this point to try to see if there's any way that I can take a cameraman with me. And it's a no-go, like big no-no. Talked with, I mean, everybody. I talked with the guy that was in charge of the entire area of Oklahoma with the wildlife department. And he was like, no. And I said, like, I know somebody went in there, and he goes, yeah, that was in 1995, which it was. And that was one thing that happened, and we're never going to do it again. And so I was like, okay, well, that's out. And so when we get there that day, I go up to the guy that's in charge of my section. And I say, I am just straight with him. I say, look, my name's Adam Carter. I'm the producer of Final Descent Outdoors. I'm here self-filming this elk hunt, and I have very little experience. And I will take any help that you can give me. And he kind of looked at me and he said, I got you. I'll help you out. And they're supposed to not be partial. They're supposed to just be there to help, make sure you don't shoot yourself or anybody else, and they're there to help you get the animal out, and that's about it.
They're not supposed to provide you with, hey, this is where we've been seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he did discuss, kind of briefly. He said, like, we've seen them, but basically the gist of what he says is we've seen them all over, which is no help at all. When you really think about it, it's like here's 5,000 acres. Oh yeah, we see them all over. Okay, that was useless. But he did end up helping me out a lot, and he kind of gave me a look of, like, you wait till I tell you to say this is where I want out.
Okay.
That was kind
of. So
he
didn't say anything to you.
He didn't say anything.
He didn't provide any information to you.
Yeah.
He was just like, I think this is a good spot.
Yeah. And he didn't even really say it. So the way it works is we started on the east side of our section and we went north. And like I said in the episode, the only thing I knew for certain is that the wind was going to be out of the north all weekend. It wasn't going to change. North, straight north. And so we get to the north side and we round the first corner and kind of go into the first hills. And the first thing we see is, these three huge bulls just run off the top of the hill and down into this other draw. They're running away from us. And so, I mean, guys are just banging on the truck all over. Just, like, this is where I want to get out. And so he can only put, I guess, I didn't really know what the regulation was, if like two guys could get out in one spot or not. I don't think that was kosher. But so almost, I'd probably say 75% like of the guys, so that's 7-8 guys in our truck of the 10 or 11 that were with us got out on the north side. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know if these guys looked at the wind or what, but I was like, be my guest. Go for it.
They saw those big elk run off the hill and they're like, this is where we need to be.
They saw the eye candy, they had to get out where they saw the bulls. And so we drove all the way up the north side and then started going back south down the west side. And there was 2 spots on the map that I was like, I kind of understood how to read the map and kind of had some just from my month's worth of YouTube videos and Google research and everything else that I'd done, trying to figure out kind of how the elk work. And so when we got down to the farthest end, there's one spot that I was looking at, and he pulled off to the road. He'd pull off every time he wanted to stop and see if anybody wanted to get out. And so he'd pull off, and he got out of the truck, and I was about to say, my mouth was open to be able to say, this is where I want to get out. And the guy behind me was like, I want this spot. And so I was like, okay. Well, and I looked at the guide, and he was just kind of like, it's okay. It's okay. And so no one at this point has gotten anywhere. So if you imagine, like, the top section, here's 2,500 acres up here, and here's 2,500 acres down here. Well, that guy that I was just talking about, the 10th guy, I was the 11th guy. The 10th guy, he got out right here. And so there's 2,500 acres right here, and nobody's in it. I got out right here by myself. So at the top, there's all these other guys and some guys on the east side. And then I didn't even get to see where I was going. So when we cut through the middle of that 2,500 or that 5,000 acre section, the guide was like, hey, we're out of time. We got to get back to the place. And I was like, oh, I haven't gotten to go down here and see where I'm going to be. He said, you'll be fine.
So you hadn't even seen it yet. They didn't even drive you through it.
No, I didn't see nothing. So, and that's what I said in the episode. Like, I'm getting dropped off first thing in the morning at dark with a map that I can't really read well at a place that I've never seen before, hunting an animal that I know nothing about with a gun I've only shot a couple times. So
and everything you pretty much learned from YouTube and Google and bread clips.
Yeah, and from people that have told me from their experiences.
So fast forward to the next morning, they drop you off and they drive off. You see the tail lights head out. What is Adam thinking? What does Adam feel?
The first thing Adam's thinking is Adam's tired because Adam didn't sleep all night.
Because you were excited?
I was excited. It's 2 things. I was excited. I was amped up. I was nervous. There's anxiety there. And then also, I don't know what was the deal with the hotel I was at, the La Quinta that I was staying at. The street light was like literally, I think it was a part of my window. So it was just like daylight in my room. I ended up getting up there and clipping it all together. That's the one thing. The one thing I did have experience in is film and video. I know I had that experience going into this hunt, so I was able to ghetto rig my room. But more importantly, I understood that most of these other guys were going to be there early. And the day before, the guy that's in charge of our section said, well, whoever's here last, that's who will probably drop off first. And I kind of took that as code from him.
That was one of his subliminal, this is a message to you, Adam.
Code. Yeah. Because, I mean, you think about it, took us an hour to drive that loop, dropping those other guys off that morning. And so at that point, when I was getting dropped off, if I got dropped off last that morning, the sun had been up, it had been everything. So I was like, there ain't no way I'm getting there first. I'm going to walk up when the clock hits 6:30 a.m., which is what time we were supposed to show up at the truck. So I was like, I'm not playing around. And I got there even early, and I just sat there fiddling with my gear, taking my butt stuff. And then I walked up to the truck, and I walked up, and the guy was like, all right, you're last. You're getting dropped off first. And he looked at me. And it was code. It had to be code. So he dropped me off. The truck pulls away, and he's like, there's a hole in the fence over there. You can find it, and you'll get on it. Because they dropped me off on the highway, and then I walked through the fence to get to where I was going to like my area. And so that's how I got dropped off. It's like, there's a hole in the fence over there. Go find it.
And go out in this pasture and then find your elk.
And so on the map, I can tell this is a big open area that I'm in. And so I go and find a little draw where there's a dried up creek, and I find a tree that I can lean up against, because the sun's not coming up for another hour at this point. And so I get the camera stuff set up, I get everything ready, and I'm just sitting in there in the dark, and I'm just going, what have you done? What are you doing? You're way out of your element. And so the sun, I just like, do what you know to do. So I go set up GoPros and some other cameras, try to get some time lapses of the sunrise and stuff like that. And the sun starts coming up, and I realize I'm like in a hole. I'm in the worst spot that I could be in. I can't see anything past 50 yards. So I was like, I pack up my stuff and go to another rock pile. And it's still not super great. So I get my binoculars out. At this point, it's kind of light, and I can see off in the distance like kind of an outcropping. I'm like, that's where I got to go. So I just grab everything, and I start walking through the field. And about this time, I see something move, and I look up, and there's 3 cows and a calf with them. And so I throw the camera up, and I film them for a second, and they run off. And I'm like, okay, I've seen signs of life. That's one bonus for the day. And so I continue walking, and I get all the way to that outcropping, and I just set the stuff up and wait at that point.
So at this point, how far are you from the highway where you got dropped off?
I've walked about a half a mile in, so I'm not far.
And you're just sitting there in the outcropping, and they pop up, or did you have to move again?
No. So I sat there for a while, and I kept hearing stuff. And where I was at, the hill kind of dropped off real hard. So it kind of went down, but I could see in every other direction, but just straight to the north of me, it kind of dropped down into a draw where I knew there was that other guy that I was talking about that took the spot that I almost took. He had a cow tag. And so those cows, when I thought to myself, when I saw them, I just started walking at them. Because I thought hopefully maybe they'll run off up into that draw where he's at. And so by the time I got set up in that outcropping, about 30 minutes into it, I heard gunshots over there. So I'm taking credit for that one. I shooed those bulls over to him for that. But I knew that hopefully some elk would come out of that draw and then down into the pasture that was on my east, which was where I was kind of facing. And while I was sitting there, I had everything set up, had the camera set up. And I was like, man, I'm just going to go get to some higher ground real quick. Some like really higher ground. So I just take the binos, and that's it. I leave the gun, the camera, I leave everything. And so I go up onto this hill. It's just basically like climbed up some rocks and got to the top of this hill. And I just start looking around. I don't see anything. I'm like, I don't know what to do at this point. I'm just going to sit here. And so I get down and get back to my stuff. And the whole time that you're there, there's wildlife trucks that are making the loop in case somebody gets hurt or somebody kills an animal or something. And one of the trucks just parks, and it's just sitting there. And I'm like, this guy, he's been sitting there for 5 minutes. He's got to be looking at something. And so I get the binos out, and I'm looking at him, and I can see in the truck, just barely I can see he's got binos out, and he's looking down the hill. And I'm like, he is looking at something. Sorry, did you lose me there?
That's all right.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
he's looking at something.
He is looking at something. So I'm just like, okay, how are we going to do this here? So I grab all the stuff again, and I go to another spot that's a little bit further away, and it's, I mean, I maybe went another 50 yards in and to another rock and kind of sat down. And I was like, so I could see what he sees. So I see him and I look where he's going. And I kind of go back and forth a few times, and I pan through one time, and a glint of an antler shows up. And I'm like, huh, you know? And so then I start kind of making my way towards these bulls. And the closer I get, I can see it's not one, there's actually 6 bulls in this one little area. And they're all together bachelored up. And there's that one that I ended up going after. He's the last one that I saw. And right when I saw him, just like feel all the blood in your body just like just come out. So it was an unreal experience.
So at the end of the day, was that your guy who was up there watching those elk?
So when I started moving, he drove off. So I don't know if he was trying to like, I don't know if that was like my guide or like.
That's what I was asking. Was that like the guy that you asked and said, I don't know what I'm doing. If you could give me some help, that'd be great.
He's giving me like the, no, I don't think that was him. Cause he was in a truck with a camper on it.
Oh, okay.
And I was in a truck that was just a pickup truck, like just a normal single cab pickup truck. So I just was like, at this point, one of the things that they said to us is they said, look, these are wildlife refuge bulls. He said, they're not going to sit around and hang around with you. You know, they're not pets. But he said they are used to seeing vehicles and the occasional human. So don't feel like you've got to make a 2-mile shot. Like, don't feel like you got to go crazy. Just do your best to get as close as possible. Put some brush in front of you and walk slow, all that stuff. He said, you'll be surprised at how close you can get. And so I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And he said, here's, you spook them. Here's the worst that's going to happen. They may run 700, 800 yards, and they'll probably stop and start eating again. He said they're used to their area. They've got their parameters and stuff. And so he said, this is not like a Rocky Mountain bull elk or something. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just walk at them, I guess. And so I kind of put some stuff in front of me, and I kind of used the draws, walked in, and I got to where I finally popped over the hill, and I could see them, and they didn't know I was there yet. And I was only about 200 yards away. And that's where I got the footage of them, those 2 younger ones with that really wonky, one of them had a real wonky antler. They were fighting. I mean, it was really cool. So I ended up not having to deal with a 400-yard shot at the end of the day, but ended up getting to get in there within somewhere around 220 or so yards.
I'm not going to lie. The first time you shot him, I thought you missed. Because he didn't do anything.
Yeah.
You just stood there.
Yeah. No, the first shot just, I mean, it's when you hit something.
Yeah, you can hear
it. You go thunk, you hear it smack them. And it didn't do anything. And I was like, well, is there like a little one behind him or is my scope so far off that I like shot the one that's 6 yards from him? So and I'm just going, okay. And so I've got my binos out. I'm looking through the scope still, and I'm like trying to see if there's any blood or anything. The only indication that I had of any kind of form was that, and you can see it in the footage, that the elk just pees. It just urinates a ton right after I shot it. And so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but that was my only indicator but I'm like, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and all of this is happening within the course of like 2 minutes. So like your brain's just, lightning. And so I'm thinking, well, I don't pee when I'm under duress. Like that's usually a relaxing time for me, right? Like you're like, oh. So it's like, man, I didn't hit that joker. I'm going to shoot him again. So put another one in, shoot him, and same thing here. And at that one, he kind of like did that little wobble. And I went, okay, something's going on. He's hit. And he ended up taking another 15 steps, and he was lunged bad, and he fell over.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like you hit him pretty good with both shots, to be honest with you, in the recovery footage.
Yeah. And that the Fort Scott ammo that we used, I mean, that was the first animal that I shot with it that didn't just drop to the ground immediately. That pig, and even all the deer that we had shot with it earlier in the season, none of them took a step. I mean, they all just right where they were. So I'd seen the performance of that bullet up to that point. And so that's what really freaked me out. And it's just one of those things that those elk, they just wear the bullet like it's nothing. And especially when he's up in a group of 5, he's not going to show any weakness. And so it's all these things that I didn't know at the time, that looking back on it now, it's like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's like me or you when we're cutting down trees, we cut our leg off, we're fine.
Yeah.
We're fine. If it's our buddies there, we're fine. If it's our wife, she's got to take us to the hospital.
Give me some duct tape.
Yeah, that's right. Well, congratulations on an amazing hunt. And like I said, here at Habit, we enjoy the partnership. We hope that the clothes helped you get out there and do what you needed to do. And we just wanted to sit down and talk to you and hear the amazing story of, like I said, just deciding to pick it up and then being thrown into the Wichita Mountains completely and totally by yourself. You did an amazing job with the footage, with the hunt. And as we close, so like you've got your bull elk on the ground now. I'm assuming that someone's coming to help you load it up. But in those 5 minutes or 10 minutes that you're there by yourself with that elk, what was it more relief? Was it more joy? Was it everything? What'd you feel?
I think every one of those emotions that you said. I mean, the biggest one at first was just disbelief. Like, I can't believe this. Like, it's unreal. Like, you look, I mean, everything about this hunt it felt just so God ordained from from the moment I got that call. Like, the fact that the wildlife department just called me instead of just saying, oh, he's a no-show. Like, just that in itself blows my mind.
Because if going from called, you would have been a no-show.
Yeah, I wouldn't have shown up. I would have once in a lifetime opportunity gone. Never would have been drawn for it ever again. And so, like, every step along the way, the fact that I'm involved with a outdoor television show, and I've got all these resources at disposal to be able to not only people but also these great sponsors who are also willing to help. I mean, it's a testament to the Habit clothing. I walked 200 yards within these elk, and they never knew I was there. And so, in the gun, our CVA, our Fort Scott ammo, like all of the stuff that we had the whole time, that in itself was a blessing. Then on top of that, getting out there, and I hunted for an hour, and got a once in a lifetime bull elk. Like, it's crazy. And not only that, but just everything else that happened from there on out with getting the animal out, everything. It just was all, it felt completely and totally God ordained. And like he wanted this to happen, and he wanted to be able to use this. We've already gotten some really cool feedback from the show about it. And it's just one of those things that it felt like it was all supposed to happen for a reason. So that was kind of the first emotions that really hit, was like, I cannot believe this is happening. This is so amazing. You get to sit there in the silence after you've killed the animal, and you're sitting there with it, and you're in the mountains, you're alone with this incredible animal. The cameras are all shut off, and it's just thankfulness. Just that, I mean, I'm one of just a very, very small portion of people that are going to be able to do this in their lifetime, not alone just that year. It's incredible. And it's something that I still really haven't completely fully grasped. I don't think like that. It's that rare. And it's one of those things that, like I told Brad in the episodes, like, don't ask a leprechaun to play in a game of chance with you. You're gonna lose. You know, like it's unwise. So, but yeah, I mean, disbelief, just complete and total joy, just amazingness. My son was so pumped up. He can't wait to. We haven't got them out yet, but he can't wait to see it. It's so super cool.
Well, Adam, we thank you for the time. We thank you for everything you do behind the camera and now in front of the camera.
Hopefully
And
not as much in front of the camera.
oh, now come on. Now there is for people who watched the first episode, you did fall out of the back of an ATV into the. I believe Brad explained it, into the mouth of an angry mother gator that you guys had just been looking at her nest.
You know, Nick, I'm trying to block some things out in my memory.
Okay, I'll leave that part out.
Yeah, no,
I can leave that part out.
That story. So it was a side by side, and you know those coolers, the edges are rounded. You know, they're not flat. So we hit this divot, and it just rolled just enough on there. And we had just filmed this gator.
I know.
9-foot alligator, and she was ticked. And all I remember was flipping. And I mean, I've got all my gear, so the camera just out of instinct, just grab it and hold it to my chest. And it's okay because I broke my fall with my neck. And the first thing that I did, just out of just reaction, was I flipped over and turned to look at the nest, and I'm just motionless. But so all Brad sees when he gets out of the side by side is his producer cameraman lying motionless on the ground after flipping backwards. And so he's and I've got my headphones in, and so all I hear is him just going in my right ear, which is his lav channel. I can hear him going, Adam, 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 and he's running up to me, and I'm just motionless because I've got my eyes locked on that nest, and I'm not looking away from it. Because that camera is going to quickly turn into a golf club that I'm going to smoke this gator with. I'm going to get me some new boots or something, because that, oh gosh. And then that next day, it's like you got so much adrenaline in you from after a fall. And that next day I woke up and I went up to Brad and I was like, I don't know if I can film today.
I'm in pain.
I was dying. Everything hurt. But trying to block that experience out.
All right. Well, we can leave that out of the video. Your luck turned around as we covered at the beginning. But again, thanks for the time, man. Good luck editing the episode, and good luck this fall when you get back out there.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate it, man. We couldn't do it all without you guys. I know that much.